Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and now partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours over the last 20 years to Italy, Spain, and soon Napa. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our second season, and our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture to all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. So sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to our podcast, Inspiring Living. I'm Mark Candelaria. Welcome to May. I hope you're all doing well. It's great to see people out and about again. I want to thank all of those who came out last night to Baller Dream Fest event at Brett and Shelley Brimley's beautiful home. Job well done by everyone, especially Brett and Shelley. Wow, absolutely amazing. My daughters Tiffany and Sophia joined me as we made 3 giant Spanish paellas, including one live at the event as the appetizer course for the dinner. So much fun, and we served over 176 paella dishes. Totally crazy. Founder Frank de Blasi did a marvelous job as they fulfilled the dreams of a number of his ballers at the event. We have had Frank on the podcast in Season 1, Episode 30, and we'll get him back to have him tell us all the great things he is doing with this foundation. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, today's podcast features 2 wonderful people in my life. First, and my newfound friend, Matt Gottesman, who I discovered while listening to my first podcast a couple years ago, The Hustle Sold Separately, while driving my girls to California on spring break. After binge listening to his podcast and realizing he was right here in Scottsdale, I reached out to say how much I enjoyed his podcast, and he responded. And from there, Isabel and I have invited him over on New Year's Day 2019 and served him what else? My paella. Well, the 3 of us struck up a friendship that has now just grown from there. And so my second guest in today's podcast is my wife, Isabel, who I love so much, and who continues to amaze me with her spiritual work and growth, all of which Matt has been instrumental in introducing both of us to some amazing people and programs that have inspired us, not to mention Matt himself, who, as I said, has become a wonderful friend. Okay, so give this podcast a listen. I know it will definitely inspire you. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Well, it's a beautiful spring Sunday afternoon, and of course, we definitely are doing some cooking around here today, and we have a very special friend in the house who's hanging out with us, and happens to be the host of his own podcast, which was the first podcast I ever listened to. Today, I have amazing podcast host, Matt Gottesman, host of the podcast, The Hustle Sold Separately, which is by far my favorite, as my podcast guest today, along with my wife, Isabel, who is also joining us. We have all become great friends now over the last 2 years, and today we are hanging out, enjoying the weather. We have a beef brisket on the smoker. Well, it's already off the smoker. It's already gone to the Instant Pot, and it's already in the red chili sauce. And we are making smoked beef brisket, red chili enchiladas, and boy, it smells good in here, huh, guys?
It's amazing.
So good.
So
Wow.
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
You're on the other side of the mic this time.
I am. I'm. This is incredible. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I wish we could all share the enchiladas with you, but of course we can't. Instead, we will have to share the podcast. So we're going to do the best we can with no smell-o-vision, but that's probably on the way, right? Right, Matt?
Absolutely. It smells incredible in here, actually.
So, well, Matt, seriously, it's an honor to have you on my podcast, and I have to tell you, I'm a bit intimidated, but I know this is going to be so much fun. We've been talking in the kitchen now for about 2 hours already, and we've been on a roll, and it's been a lot of fun. I said, we got to get over here and get this podcast going because we're going to miss out on everything. But I want my listeners to get to know you a little more. I think they're going to find you very fascinating, and I know you and Isabel have become great friends. All 3 of us have become great friends, and so I'm really glad to have both of you here today. So welcome, Isabel, also.
Thank you.
So I remember the very moment when I listened to your podcast. I was driving my kids to Santa Barbara. I had a project over there, and we decided to just go for spring break. I'm driving through L.A. somewhere, took the 10 and then got off and went north of L.A. and didn't, stuck in traffic for hours.
And I said, well, I got to check out some of these podcasts. I hear people talking about these podcasts all the time. And so I kind of meandered around and just randomly stumbled onto yours. And I think it was your logo or whatever. So this looks cool. And
Do you think it was really random?
it was
Right.
well, we
No
can talk about all
coincidences.
no coincidences. But here we are sitting and I love your podcast, and I tell people about it all the time. I find it so inspiring. Your guests are so inspiring. I always walk away at the end of your podcast with something that I go, that's a whole new way to look at this that I never contemplated. So I love that about your podcast.
I appreciate that. That's a big part of the mission of it too.
Yep. So after following your podcast for some time, I did reach out to you. I think we connected on Instagram.
We did.
Is that how it was?
Yep.
I can't remember.
Through the DM.
Which you're an amazing responder to your DMs.
Yeah.
You always talk about it.
Yeah.
So you respond to all of them.
As best as I can.
As best you can.
Yes.
And I'm sure your thing is blown up. I don't know how much time that must take every day, but you do an amazing job of that. But that's how we connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fascinating that you and I connected that way on social media. Isabel and I connected on social media 10 years ago, and it's just changed our world in so many ways that I think you can look at it in a positive way, or you can look. There's obviously a very negative side to it. It's the black and white, the dark and light of the world, right?
Yeah, it's enhanced our ability to connect across cultures and across town.
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
in a fraction of a second, right? So.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of the coolest things in the world. I mean, I'm working with people now on the other side of the earth that are part of my team. You know, that could never do that 10 years ago.
I think that's one of the I mean, I don't want to take away from your flow, but I love that. It's a very good point that we can connect people in our own industries or our own talents or the things that we're trying to do, or complementary talents to us halfway around the world. And I know we'll get into that here in a little bit, but it's incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah. So then I believe it was in our 2019, 2020 New Year's Eve paella. Actually, it's New Year's Day is when we do the paella. We didn't do it this year.
It was New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, yeah. 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
2020.
2020. Beginning of 2020. Beginning of the year that we'll never forget.
A decade ago.
Yeah. It seems like it, doesn't it? It's
Sure
like, God,
does.
the world changed so dramatically after that. But we had our paella party here, and we invited you over. And I think it's the first time we actually physically met you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we were trying to remember is when it was. And I think that's when it was.
Yeah.
That's when it was.
Yep. And I know there were some people here that knew you. And I know Jason Monchka was here. And
Yep.
he knew you. And he knows everybody, though. And so it was a lot of fun having you that night. And I remember we kind of got together over there in the corner of the kitchen. And we started talking about life and spirituality. And we kind of went off on some deep avenues.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when Isabel kind of perked up.
Yep.
She says, who is this guy?
You were speaking my language.
Yeah, totally.
It was nice. Yeah. It was
Right.
really good.
Yeah, you're like, what did you just say? Let's talk about this a little bit more. Let's dive into that a little bit further. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of started, right?
That is
Yeah.
exactly how.
So then tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I know we the three of us all stay connected, but you two have really connected on some cool levels too with different things.
Well, you connected me to Katie.
You're right. To Katie
So,
Carleen, yep.
With the Gateway Healing courses. So I did all of those last year, and I would have never known about that had you not come to our New Year's Day paella.
Right. Well, so the conversation started that we talked about healing.
Right.
Really, at the core of it all, right? We're all healing from something, or we're constantly, growing in our personal development,
In our
but
journey.
also in our journey. Yeah,
Yep.
in our sometimes we're physically healing, sometimes we're spiritually healing, sometimes we're mentally healing. We're all on our personal growth journey. We experience some stuff, and so I remember you were telling me a little bit about your past and what you were interested in, and then I started talking to you about Katie Kylene here in town. And the combination of breath work and understanding the spiritual blockages that actually happen inside of us, and you're like, yes,
That was the connector.
Yeah, you're like, yes, because
It was a connector
Yeah.
because, a lot of people know I went through treatment for stage 4 cancer. And during that time, I was very, very much having a spiritual awakening.
Yes,
And a lot of things were happening that I couldn't articulate. And so, you connected me to a person who has I'm so grateful,
Yeah.
been able to help me make sense of all that.
Yeah, and and even though I came from a household that it was very openly accepted to, just to, understand the bigger picture of like what's really happening with us. It wasn't until I, as I went further down the rabbit hole myself as well too. And I think sometimes sometimes society makes it like this crazy, it's like difficult to talk about or whatever it might be in terms of like, because it can get so, you know,
Out
there,
there.
but
Right.
but it actually doesn't really have to be. It's actually very simple, like at a very soulful level. Like we're all here to do some form of work. If you believe you have a soul, you're here to do some work, and but how to do the work and understand it, and how to make corrections to different things, and why do we have certain intuitions and things like that. Like once we start understanding that, then we start to realize there's a lot more happening than we probably ever realized.
Why was I driving down the freeway in LA that day and just happened to stumble
There you
on
go.
it? I mean,
Exactly.
right?
You didn't just happen to.
Didn't it just happen? It happened for a
Exactly.
reason.
Right.
And then, I remember then at some point after that, you invited me to be a guest
Yes.
on your podcast, which was so much fun. And that was a great experience for me. And then, this has just kind of blossomed. We've become good friends. Obviously, time is such a factor that, we had the COVID thing, and we got together a few times in the midst of all
Oh,
that,
yeah.
too, which has been a lot of fun. I know you love coming up here for the cooking, so
It's amazing. Are you kidding me? It's one of my most favorite things to do.
well, we love feeding
you guys
right?
are incredible cooks.
We love
Yeah.
feeding people, don't we? What do
We
you always say,
do.
Isabel?
Yeah.
We love to feed people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I love about your podcast is it gives us a platform to dig deep, which I know you love to do. I mean, we've
Right.
had great conversations in the 2 hours you've been here already today. But instead of you doing the digging, today I'm doing the digging, okay?
Uh-oh.
And we want to learn more about you, Matt. So tell us where the story of Matt Gottesman begins.
I was born on a fine spring day.
Okay.
Is that how
Yeah,
far-
well, you have a
we go
birthday
back to
coming
birth?
up in
Yeah, I
what,
do.
a couple days.
Yeah, I'm very I like to sometimes pay homage to my parents because when I'm asked about my story, I guess you could say, because I was very, very fortunate that I had two very unique, interesting parents. My father was very like integrity driven, take care of family, take care of community, like be a good person. But if you can imagine, this is a guy from Bronx, New York, a lawyer, very like, he was very direct and very honest, but he was very loving. And didn't use terms like, I mean, he would say I love you to me, but like not. He didn't show like a lot of emotion, but he always did really good things, and help people. My mother was the one that was very like holistic healer type, very.
This is my mom and dad to
right?
a T.
Like
you're describing
there's
him
no
to a T.
coincidences, right?
Right.
Why we're friends. So
Yep.
my mom, she had the answer was always, read this book or take this, flaxseed oil or take this echinacea or, and this is before these things were really popular. I mean,
Right.
you're going back 30 some years ago.
Exactly my mom.
And she was like, you'll thank me one day, and she was right. And so, I was really grateful because they leaned on each other as partners for the parts they complemented each other.
Yeah.
It's not
Yep.
to say they had a perfect marriage, but they were a good fit for each other. They really helped each other. So I'm very grateful to have been a part of that. And then luckily I had a father who was very much like, we love you, but you also have to figure out your own way.
Right.
So he taught me very much to work for all of it, everything. And so we don't have a blueprint until we start to create our own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I started experimenting with life. I started figuring out the different areas of things that I wanted to do, and I don't know how much you want me to talk about, but
Oh, that's
yeah.
what I want to learn.
Yeah,
I want to
okay.
learn
So-
more about you.
So I initially I got my degrees in international business.
Okay.
And I then set out. I said, I'm going to go into the music industry. This is what I want to do. It's changing. Technology, like Napster,
Right.
the digital revolution is upon us. Well, I was also about 20 years too soon, too early, and I was like looked at as crazy. So talk about like visionary and spirituality or
Yeah.
knowing things ahead of time. And I remember going to the industry and thinking like, okay, let me show you guys like what's gonna happen. I'm like, sure, kid, sure. Like that's it's not gonna happen. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, look, it's real. I can do it. I can show
Yep.
you. and they were ignoring it.
Yep.
And I get it. I understand. It's new. Is it a fad? Is it a trend? And then they were also like suing Napster. Everybody was suing Napster at the time. And so I really didn't feel like I fit in. And that has been a reoccurring theme my whole life. But I also come from a very independent family and making your own way. So it makes sense. But I didn't fit in. I went and I tried to, after that, I left pretty early on and decided to make my first tech startup in my early 20s.
Wow.
Around the internet and music. And I did not know what I was doing at all. Does anybody ever really when they first start?
You just got to dive in
and
figure it out.
Yeah. And I got inadvertently got a Harvard degree in law and an MIT degree in engineering.
That's pretty good.
Without actually going to those schools, by having to learn everything you can imagine that goes wrong in a startup, basically, you know. But it gave me my life.
Yeah.
Really. So I feel very grateful. And so I sat with really smart people and asked them a lot of questions, and I really quickly learned that the business world and the tech world at the time really weren't communicating. You know, somebody would say like, "Hey, we want a website," and an engineer would say, "Well, what do you want it to do?" "Well, I want a website." "Well, what do you want it to do?" "Well, I want a website." And this loop started happening. Well, I ended up becoming this digital strategist, a business strategist, but for digital in between, along the way, right? Because I could speak both languages. And that was kind of like the start of, you know, me working with brands and businesses and helping them better understand, like, how do you leverage tech and the internet and for all of its aspects, you know, of the entire infrastructure of your business.
Yeah, and it keeps evolving. I mean, when I think of, you know, email and websites when they first started, what that looked like, what that scene looked like then, and what that scene looks like now, and where, you know, we were just discussing earlier where this can all go. I mean, I don't think we've even scratched the surface of any of this stuff yet.
No, which we were just talking about where we're heading.
It's crazy.
Remember, you had to plug the computer into the phone line.
Oh, yeah.
And it was dial-up.
Right. And that would take like 5 minutes. You go make some coffee, or you go you like go make a sandwich and come back.
And there was only AOL.
Yeah, only AOL for a while there. Well, there was a couple other ones, but everyone got onto AOL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
and now look at it. That wasn't that long ago.
No, it really wasn't. And that's
it.
how fast we're evolving technologically, you know. And I know we'll probably get into more of that here, I guess, in a little bit. But and I can keep going. But I feel.
Well, how did you make your way here to Arizona?
So, at around the age of 12 or 13, we were living in New Jersey. My family's all from New York. My dad was familiar with Arizona, and he knew about Tucson because he went to law school there. And he thought we needed a change, and he was right. You know, New Jersey in the 80s was New Jersey in the 80s. I think we'll leave it at that. But there were a lot of changes in his life, and he wanted to do a reset. I admire him because, you know, to pick up your family, move all the way around the country, and start again in a different environment.
He was brave.
Yeah. But he was like that. He never. If he worried, I wouldn't have known. I'm sure he had some worries, but he was very in his convictions of like, it'll all be fine. It was my mom, on the other hand. I think that it was like, will it be? She's like, I know to trust you, so I'll just trust you. But will it be? And she always listened to him, though. She trusted him. They had a unique relationship. And so we came out here. I went to high school and college in Arizona.
Yep.
I left and lived in other parts of the world.
In Tucson?
Times. Yeah, in Tucson.
Uh-huh.
I went to University of Arizona.
Okay.
And then
we won't hold that against you. That's okay.
What's that?
I won't hold that against you. I'm a Sun Devil, so
I understand. And after you've lost so many times to us, it becomes part of your guys' trauma, and I understand.
I get it. Yes.
Just kidding. But ultimately, I ended up back in Arizona at Phoenix and Scottsdale in 2010 to go to Thunderbird and get my international business, my master's, my MBA in international
that's amazing.
business. Yeah.
That's good for you.
Yeah.
So you're a self-starter.
Yes, very
Right?
much so. Very much so.
You don't wait for things to happen.
No.
You make things happen.
I absolutely.
That's what I love about you.
Yeah, and luckily now that I'm older, I'll do it. I'll think through it and execute at the same time. I won't just just do it just to do it. Like, I actually will do it right.
So now your podcast. You've been doing your podcast for how long?
5-6 years.
5-6 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what prompted you to start that podcast?
Well, the startup and everything in my 20s, once that was done with, and then I ended up working with big brands. I went to get my MBA. I was married at the time as well. to a great person who was in med school and then residency, and when I was done working with some of these different brands, towards the end of it, like I worked with like brands like Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy and Krug Champagne and all those, and then there's a couple other brands after them that between them and a couple other businesses, professionally, my life like really drastically changed all in one. Like in 4 months, I pretty much lost all my contracts. My marriage was gone, and it all worked out really well. And it was an amicable divorce and things like that. And but you feel like you do everything right on paper, and then all of a sudden, even when you do things right, all of a sudden everything's gone. Like, how did that happen?
Been there, done that a few times in life.
Yeah, that's why I love when we would share stories. And it was very uncomfortable because I knew I didn't want to blame anybody. Ironically, even when you're doing things you think from a really good place, and I still believe I was, but I didn't feel like I wanted to blame anybody.
Right.
And so I'm left in this weird crux of, okay, I guess I'm going to have to look at the man in the mirror, and what do you do? Like, where do you start? And I went to my parents' rabbi, and down in Tucson, I was visiting, and I said, hey, my soul hurts.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, that's a
good place to start.
He's like, that happened. Well, it was comforting. He was like, it happens. It can happen. And he said, basically, your journey is going to be about your journey with your character, who you are in this world, starting with yourself, who you are if you ever want partnership again, which I do,
right, and
who you are, as in a family and in community and all these things. And so I started running my race and spiritually, and I was heading into divorce. And this kind of leads up to the podcast and starting everything online. Is my father was we were in an airport coming home, and we were having a very serious talk. Well, like a light talk, but a serious talk at the same time about like life,
right?
Right. And he was like, "I love you." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I mean, like you're a good man, but like you don't normally start off like that, And he's like, "I love you, but I'm concerned." And I said, "Okay, like what's going on?" And I'm kind of paraphrasing at this point, but more or less, he basically said, if you don't start running your race for yourself, for like what you really want to do and for you, I don't know when is going to be a better time. Like, you better start running your race, kid. And it hit me very much at my core. Like, I still get chills about it because, when it hurts so good, but you're like, ooh, like, it in your soul. Yeah. Cause it's like, I'm concerned, like, you need to run your race because he had seen all the good I did for other people, all the good I did for businesses, all these different things. And he was like, you really need to start running your race for yourself. And I took that to heart. And so I came home and I started, I kind of ditched a little bit of the VC world, the tech startup world. I ditched the brands and the consulting, like just all the big stuff, all the stuff on paper. And I was like, I have a little bit of running room. I'm going to take to the internet. I'm going to do all the things that I've been telling other companies to do.
Interesting.
And so I went online. I started talking to the world. I didn't know they were going to talk back. I had kind of an idea, and they did, and they started talking back to me, and I wanted to create, and this leads into the podcast, I wanted to create a space that just got very real about entrepreneurship, the things that they don't talk about,
right?
Life and partnership, relationships, health, like all the things, mental health. We're given and force-fed so much stuff about what success should look like from media and glamorizing all this stuff, and I think that's really unfair because then everybody is comparing, but we're all individual souls walking this earth, and it's unfair for any of us to compare to anybody or to feel like any less than because we're not in a certain place in life yet.
Right.
And as that all picked up steam, my audience asked for a podcast. I didn't think I was going to do it. I kept saying no, and then opportunities kept presenting itself to do a podcast.
Yep.
And then I eventually said, all right, let's do the podcast. And there's an expression, the dream is free, right? The hustle's sold separately.
Yep.
Got to do the work. And it wasn't meant to be like hustle, like grind. It was more of like, hey, anything in life that you really want to do, you're going to have to do the work.
Yeah. You
in everything,
Whatever it is.
And then I knew that anybody that comes on the show, I we can talk about in the bio all these great things, but from that point on, I want to know about the soul, the person that, like, what are you learning about yourself in the creation of the world that you're creating
Right.
around you, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, I love the intro to your podcast.
thank you.
It's very cool, and it's like, I don't know, it always drives me. It's like, yep, that's it right there.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
And you have the perfect voice
Thank
Oh, yeah,
you.
you got a
Thank
for
you.
a podcast. Like,
Thank you.
it's so good,
Thank
so
you very much.
powerful. So, yeah.
So how many podcasts have you recorded? Quite a few, huh?
Yeah.
What number are you up to?
I'm up to about 380.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you love doing the podcast.
I love
don't
it.
you?
I absolutely love it.
mean-
It's like Zen moments for me.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
me, what I love about it, just like we're doing right now, we had a conversation over there in the kitchen, which
Yeah.
was great. And don't get me wrong, I love it. But when you're in a podcast, it's just a little bit different. It's like you dig into things in a different
Oh,
way.
yeah.
It's not so random. And I've just gotten to know people that there's people on my podcast that I've known for years and years and years. But in the course of asking these types of questions, I've gotten to know them on such a different
yeah.
level, right?
And I feel like most people, these are conversations people want to have.
Yeah.
They really do.
They don't know how to do it, how to get there.
No, and listen, I get it, because a lot of people are they're leading busy lives, and they're around
Yeah.
a lot of people who, like, what do you mean you want to talk about my soul, or you want to talk about the depths of what I wanted to be when I grow up, and how that turned into this, and what am I facing, and what I learn, and
Right.
So
No, and that's just it. I mean, what I have absorbed by listening to your podcast and just being your friend is this: you're a very spiritual, very, very deep person. And what I love about you and your podcast is you look at life and work and everything from that very same deep and all-encompassing perspective.
yeah,
And you dig into it.
Yeah.
You're not afraid to poke at things.
No.
Which I love.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I could see a lot of people would not go there.
Yeah.
And you go pretty deep.
I do, but one thing, and you see this kind of in media, where I think they poke to, like, try to get these juicy details,
Yeah.
of, like, to, like,
No, yours is with good with good
like,
spirit.
Yeah,
Good intention.
I thought about doing it instead from this place of, hey, like, there's so much more depth to you as a human being, like, and I think the world should know more about that. And but to take the pressure off of the individual, I say we're basically having a coffee conversation that the rest of
Right.
the world can hear, right?
Right.
And I think it's important to honor the person in all the things that they go through on a journey, versus only giving them accolades for the work of, like, well, you sold a $50 million company, or you
Right.
did this. It's like, why don't we look at the fact that you had to conquer a few things to get there, and that you're still learning. And
Well, your podcast the other day about failure,
yeah,
I thought was so good. You had two people on,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you like you say all the great business books talk about all the great successes.
Yeah.
They never really dig too deep into the failures. No one wants to talk about
Right.
it. Everyone wants to just like, oh my God, I don't even want to admit that happened to me.
Why not? I don't understand what
it's interesting.
Like, and I get it. I think a lot of people are saving face
Right.
from what? Do you know? I feel like there's this beauty in making mistakes and the failure, and it's very freeing, by the way, when you actually talk about these things instead of feeling like you're hiding them. And I get it. Most people, I think, they're afraid to talk about them because it's like, how will the world then view me?
Right.
And I'm like, honestly, they'll probably view you even better, because
Yeah,
you're like,
'cause it's a certain
human being.
humbleness. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's humbleness. Humility is a superpower. That's all I
Totally.
say it all the time.
Totally. So you've introduced Isabel and I to so many cool events, workshops. We were just talking about a couple of those things just recently, and very amazing people. And we cannot thank you enough for that, for sure. So tell us a little bit about that, the two of you. Tell us about some of the things that have come out of this friendship that has helped your path, Isabel.
I think, gosh, that's a loaded question, Mark. I think really for me, what was so nice is that it came at the right time when I really needed someone to be able to communicate some of these things that I was experiencing. And there's a plan to it.
Yeah.
And even though in our classes we're all having very individual, different experiences, we're having them collectively. And I just love that, because we are all individual and we all have our own, view of the world. I think that's what I love about your podcast too.
Yeah.
Because you bring that out in people. So you yourself have that gift, but you're also just very connected.
Yeah. The connectivity, I think, just like group therapy. I've been through group therapy, and comparing that to just one-on-one therapy, they're so different because there's that energy, and then there's that ability of you to observe other people dealing with things.
Oh yeah.
And them observing you and telling you about your things.
Yeah.
Versus just the therapist telling you.
Yeah.
There's something powerful about that.
Oh yeah, and then in these workshops, well, for context for anybody listening, it's like because we were able to connect on again, like back to what we said at the beginning, where we're looking at spirituality and healing and just the things that we don't always know, like how do we intuitively know something,
right?
Why is it like why do we make certain decisions that we make and we're not even sure why? Or how do we have certain talents that we were naturally came into this world with? You're just able to start playing the piano because you just play the piano. It's like there's certain things we just naturally do, right? Yep. And when you realize that the thing that there's like also a bigger picture happening, that's where we were talking like you asked me, Isabel, you're like, hey, how do you know some of this stuff? And that's where I said, well, my best friend is an international spiritual psychologist and energy healer, and this is the modality. Arizona Spiritual Events, if anybody's listening. Because I tell people, I'm like, you want to go get aligned? That's the person who will align you. ArizonaSpiritualEvents.com. That's the girl. But so you were asking about that, and I was telling you about my journey with it, and with Katie, and I was just saying that I was able to look at areas that I like. So I like spirituality, and I like business. I think, and I like life, and I think they all constantly. I think spirituality plays into everything, and I get asked that every now and then. They're like, "How?" And I'm like, "Well, if you understand more of what's going on internally inside you, and at a much bigger scale, the decisions you make will bleed over into everything else that you do in your life."
Right.
But sometimes we don't know why we're making certain decisions or what's tripping up. You ever just not be able to see something?
Yeah.
Like you're holding on for so long, and somebody keeps telling you something, you're like, "I can't see it." And then eventually you can. Well, imagine if you all of a sudden start stripping away things and you're like, oh my God, I can actually see these things now.
What I find fascinating about all this, and I'm trying to instill some of this in my company myself, is, you can be on this spiritual path, you can be on this, this adventure, or whatever you want to call it, of exploration. And what I'm trying to do with my team is, and I think when you look at business and spirituality, they are disconnected. And so it's like science and art, or science and spirituality. They're two different worlds. But I think we're all trying to pull it together. We're trying to pull those two together and show they're really the same thing, just from two different angles, right?
Very much so.
Oh yeah, they are.
Very much so.
And so what I'm trying to do is then, just instead of just me preaching it, really try to create that energy within the whole company.
Yeah.
So the whole company not only is just doing the job and doing the math and the science of the job, but why are we doing this job? What are we trying to give back to the world and to spirituality and to, the beauty of the world with what we're doing? So it's not just numbers.
No. In fact, I
don't know if I said that perfectly, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
I do. I now having my own agency and but just thinking about even like in leadership, how we treat other people. So if we're really spiritually in tune and self-aware or self-loving, the way I look at it is, how do we empower a team but not enable a team? I always want to empower people, not enable them.
Right.
And we can't get in their way, but we can kind of guide, but we also have to be connected.
Right.
So I now look at it at a team and say, what are your needs? Like, I actually want to know, what do you want in life? What are your needs? Like, how does what you're doing here fit into those things that you're wanting in your life? Because if we're all rowing the boat together, right, we're all able to like contribute collectively to the whole.
Yeah, the energy is 10 times more.
Yeah,
the 2 plus 2 is 12.
And most people all people want to be seen, felt, and heard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be understood. At the core root level, everybody wants to be understood. Also, what the podcast is about is that people want to be understood for who they really are, and not always for like how they're maybe perceived by the general world. And so I find especially in business, if we have a better understanding of the people that we're hiring or that we're relying on, and we're empowering them through helping them get what they want out of being this part of their journey. Hopefully they stay for a long time, but if they don't,
Well, and work is unfortunately a big part of our daily life.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at
Yeah.
work, at least 8, if not 12 hours a day.
only 8.
Yeah, that's why I said 12 right away. And
It's
it's
way
like,
more.
why not make that experience, that's such a big part of your life, more meaningful,
Absolutely.
And-
creative and innovative
right?
and
And inspiring to yourself,
inspiring, directional, and
Yep.
and artistic, and
and not just a job, just
And
the
not
time
just a
clock.
job.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
I say I'm leading with love.
yeah.
That's good.
Definitely.
You have to.
Yeah,
Like, my people know how much I love them.
right.
I appreciate them for who they are, what they contribute to the company. I hope they find as fulfilling
Mm-hmm.
in themselves as our clients find the work. We're doing all kinds of different things now. Like, we just brought in an art therapist, and we had an art therapy session just because, we also are very technical in there. We're figuring out and solving problems and keeping track of minute information. And so, so we had this art therapist come in, and we just kind of unraveled some kinks of all that one afternoon together. And it was really, really cool to see, how different we were all painting, but how much it really reflects our own characters.
Yeah, I think more companies need to spend more time. Maybe it's tough. Like, if you're Amazon, how do you get everyone to sit down and do that?
Yeah, maybe in individual departments, and
Probably
have
right.
it trickle
But
down.
you still want that collective underlying message.
Right.
You can't have everyone going off in 15 different tangents.
I mean, I think it always starts at the top.
Starts at the
I
top.
do like the fact that you said leads with love. And I always say that love is actually very, very honest. I think sometimes it gets distorted when, no, I was hurt by this person, or I was hurt by this job, or it's like, no, your ego was hurt. Because your heart is actually very honest. Because your heart would have said, oh, you know what? This is how I could have done this better, and this is how I didn't like to be treated, or this is what needs to be done. I'll know better for next time. It's very honest. It's very direct.
Right.
It's very to the point, but it's also very non-judgmental, and like, hey, no, we're going to lean into this. We're going to work through this. You're not
Right.
going to be judged. There's not going to be an opinion, but we're also going to be honest about what it really is. We're not going to just let it go under the rug. All these things are love, in my opinion, but
Yeah.
often at times, how does society maybe I don't know, or corporate world maybe paint love as like, oh, lovey-dovey, emotional. Like,
This
no,
is
no,
bus-
no.
this is business.
I'm actually dealing with the problem versus letting
Right.
it escalate and make
There's
assumptions.
the
That to
strength.
me is actually
Yeah.
doing that is actually counterintuitive to a business.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
So, yep.
I mean, a lot of it to me, it's like a family. I mean, when I'm dealing with my employees, they're part of my family. I feel like they're part of my children, and I'm the father, and it just feels that way.
Yeah.
But I learn a lot from working with them and watching them grow, and it's been an amazing journey just in the last 10 years as I'm trying to transition the business, and we're doing a great job. It's fun to watch them blossom and grow, and carry on the legacy of what we tried to do. So I want to switch gears here real quick with the two of you. I'm fascinated. I know Isabel's morning routine, and I want you to talk about that a little bit. But I want to know your morning routine, and we talked about this earlier today too, about every person's day is throwing curveballs.
Right.
But I think it's important to have kind of an underlying core or structure or
Yes.
routine that you can always fall back on.
Yes.
Right? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's
Absolutely.
what does your routine look like?
Well, and let me preface by saying I get it. At one point, I was a night person.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I was a night person, and so I get this from people all the time. Like, oh, but I'm a night person. I'm like, I'm telling you, there's something different about coming off of good night's sleep, still early in the day, you owning it.
No
before
distractions?
No distractions before the rest of the world is awake. And we know this because we see a lot of really, if we're going to tie success to metrics, certain people that we admire seem to have really good lives. Well, they get up very early and they do a lot of things before the rest of the world is ever doing anything. So I switched my gears and worked on it over the last so many years, looking and observing different and trying different, modalities or different entrepreneurs' advice and all these different these different things. And The key components of my morning, 5 to 5:30 is when I wake up.
Okay.
Closer to 5 these days, and between 5 and 8:30, 9 o'clock is my time, like completely, you know. And during that time, there's movement and exercise for 45 minutes. There's prayer. There's gratitude, intention journaling, a lot of coffee. There's also reading in there. I'll read at least 10 pages. Well, I'm doing 75 hard, so it's a little bit of a protocol, but I'll read at least 10 pages. It'll either be something spiritual or it might actually be business related. So I always want to keep my mind fresh in the areas that interest me most in my creativity and in business. So I'm always reading about things that are happening within my industry or complementary industries and things like that that are it's just good to know. It's just good to get while you're in your most dominant, you know, coming off of your sleep, your
Clear.
your clarity is at an all-time high. So I'm also reading, and I've got it all in different time sections, you know, in the morning. And then I've recently instituted something that's kind of interesting, so it altered the time in the morning a little bit. Between 8 and 9:30, I'm the first client. It's actually a very new thing to,
cool.
like, I'm treating me as the first client. So I give myself an hour and a half of like, what do we want to create within the agency, or what do we want to create within the media, or some of the new projects that I might be working on? Where does that going to be dedicated towards?
Right.
And
That's great.
let's do that. So I'm the first client now that gets, like, you know,
Attention. Yeah.
And then from 9:30 on, it's go time.
Right.
But because of all the grounding and everything in the morning and doing all this stuff, some people, I think, it would freak out, like, oh my God, that's like, you know, so late of a start. I'm like, no, I'm already like, I'm about like months ahead of you, because like, and I don't mean to make it like as a comparison, but it's like, but you so ground, you know, you're because you can make decisions and key decisions at high levels that are highly executable in less time, that move the needle much faster than if you were just jumping into the hamster wheel and just going.
Totally. Yeah. My perspective is totally different. I can look things in a less distracted mind. So what I tend to do, and I'll get to Isabel's because hers is very, very cool. Mine tends to change, but I do keep a good chunk of the morning to myself to accomplish the things that are my critical items.
Yes.
You know, the Pareto principle, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So I find that's when I'm the clearest mind. I can look at the problem and solve it in very little time.
Yes.
Then, you know, in the middle of phone calls, distractions, emails, meetings, it's like, so it makes a big difference. I do like to get my exercise in when I'm not buried with things, and then get into my jacuzzi and drink my coffee and just enjoy some time to quietly meditate. And then every once in a while, Isabel and I have been able to get together and just pray a little bit at her motivation, her pushing me. Let's pray. I said, okay, let's do it. So tell us about your morning, Isabel.
Well, we both wake up early, which is a good thing.
We both wake up about 4:30.
Yeah, 4:30 probably is an average.
And the cats are into our system now, so they're up and moving around 4:30.
They're up early too. Yeah, Alan used to be a late sleeper, but now he wakes up early as well. So
he's checking his emails later now.
Yep.
So,
yeah, so same kind of thing. A lot of prayer, meditation, journaling, reading. On a really good day, maybe I take a holy bath. That's kind of something I really love to do, but I want to make sure I'm in my heart before I leave the house.
Right.
I pretty much have been known to turn around and come back if I have left, and it just changes my day. Everything goes better.
Yeah.
Things run more smoothly. I feel like I avoid problems I might otherwise have. I'm able to make good decisions. People are responsive, not only my team, but our clients, vendors. It's like there's a definite vibe about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's I've noticed that, because yes, sometimes I do put the high priority item in the morning of work because my creativity is so hard.
Yeah, but I can be more efficient with it.
Yeah, and sometimes there's no choice, but then sometimes it's just really high.
Yep.
I've noticed on mornings that I skip out on the prayer and gratitude, or the intention journaling, if you will. And the intention journaling, which we talked about, was like, you start off, the first question is morning thoughts, feelings, and intuition. So you're really like writing out like where you really at, When I skip that, I definitely notice the difference in the day and the way I move and flow. Now, you do it long enough, that energy will carry you for several days, but you will get tired. For me, I'll get tired after several days, and I'll feel a little all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that, like, you got to really stick to the discipline of what keeps you,
I think I forgot to say
consistent.
too the breathing,
Yeah.
just that deep breathing, and that makes. I mean, that's the connection right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So
I think it's, from what I've heard from the two of you, and I've read in a lot of books too, I mean, I think when you take the time to really focus on these intentions and the gratitudes, those things all soak into your subconscious. So as you
Yes.
go through the day, your subconscious is finding those things, and
Yeah.
it's moving your energy in the right direction. That's
Yeah.
what I find.
It makes me very clear and directional.
Yeah.
Like interestingly, and it's almost a hard concept at first to think about because it's kind of quote unquote unrelated to your business, right? Or to your work or whatever. But is it?
No,
Because
I don't
not
think
at
it
all,
is.
right?
No.
Because what I have found is that grounded me when I put myself first and I do these things, again, I can make decisions so much faster and so much clearer, like an absolute kind of knowing in a
Yeah.
way. Where's that coming from? Well, if you think about it, if I set myself up to know, like, well, what do I need and what do I really want and where am I really heading and how are things, and you're checking in, you're doing all this stuff. Well, of course, now the world's going to present its stuff to you, and you're like, yes, no, yes, wait,
Yep.
maybe I'll
Yep.
get back to you. Yes, no. Decisions happen faster. So I always say we slow down to move things faster in our life by
That's exactly
slowing
right.
down.
That's exactly right.
Right?
And the other metaphor or analogy is like an athlete. I've heard on so many podcasts and interviews, athletes will say, I visualize the whole game. I visualize every shot.
Yeah.
I visualize every free throw.
Yeah.
And so when you're in that position, you're not even thinking about it. You're
No.
just your subconscious knows exactly how to do it.
You're so highly present,
Right.
I think you were going to say something about that.
I mean, I feel like when you're in that zone too,
Yeah.
things just don't happen that might happen otherwise, and you
Right.
completely avoid something that could end up taking a lot of time to solve, or
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't even hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got it solved before it ever even happened.
Mhm.
that's
And being in the intuitive mode, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I can be like, oh gosh, I need to get that client that, and sure enough,
Yeah.
that'll come up, and I'm like, yeah, that was on my mind. Here
Yeah.
it is.
it's
And so instead of it, becoming like, why didn't you do this, or where is this?
yeah.
It's like it's right here.
That's
Yeah.
actually, I think, a very powerful point because when we're clear and we're already thinking it, we end up somehow thinking ahead. And clients are like, "How did you know? How do you?" It's like you're always ahead, or you're always, this, or you're always that, and like, just came on my mind, and I took care of it. Or I'm able to prepare for the things that you don't see coming better.
Mm-hmm.
And people always say, like, well, that seems a little like somebody last year, and I said this I think on a recent podcast as well too, but somebody asked me, they said, well, how do you know? I don't get it. Like, people always surprise me, and I was like, they never surprise me ever. And this woman said, she's like, what do you mean? And I said, oh, well, they do something unpredictable all the time. Like, humans are humans. And she's like, yeah, so that doesn't surprise you? I'm like, no, I actually expect
Yeah.
people to, like, I always account for the human factor.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
So a more
And
grounded.
it's not an unexpected thing.
And it's not unexpected. Like, oh, yeah, I can see how that could have happened. And so I'm already prepared because I'm already thinking ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if I was a client
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to hire Matt Gottesman,
Yes.
tell me what does that look like?
Yes.
What would I come to you for, and what would you do for me?
That's the first time somebody's actually asked that way, and I like that because normally people, already know coming through like a referral or something like that.
Yep.
But so my agency, which is a kind of a play on words, Systems Over Hustle is what I ended up calling it. For now, I've got some new name changes in the future here, but we do sales and marketing automation. All of the fun, techie, sexy stuff that most people find very boring and don't want to do for their business, but operationalizes them for scale, right? Like, how do you manage all of your clients that come in and all the overwhelm with all the admin and all the emailing and all the onboarding and all the invoicing and taking a client from a lead to onboarding
Mm-hmm.
to finish. Well, we help our clients do that as well. Like we did it for ourselves, and then we do it for our clients. So it's, sales and marketing funnels, and lead generation, and lead acquisition, and lead tracking, and all of this really geeky stuff, as I say. But we're living in an automation world where I wanted to make sure. I used to audit agencies back in the day, like digital agencies and these branding agencies, and I have a background in all of it. And a lot of times I would see what people were really afraid of. It's hard for an entrepreneur to give up control in their business because even though they're highly overwhelmed, they want to take care of the customer, and B, there's a lot of stuff that they just don't know in all the ways that they can, make it more efficient.
Right.
So I really set out on this mission to say, all right, we can solve a lot of this for entrepreneurs and business owners in automating their processes for their sales and marketing, but without losing the personal touch.
Right.
Because that's a big, big fear for anybody. It's like, I don't want them to not feel like I'm not a part of the business. I'm like, no, you're integrated into everywhere of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we've tried to do is not only, systemize our sales and marketing, but our operation, how we do things in the whole experience. We have a very systematic approach of how that gets done.
Yes.
And so everyone learns how we do a groundbreaking party, how we do a set of plans, everything. There's a checklist. It's like, it's like I use McDonald's. What's the most successful restaurant in the history of the world? McDonald's
for their franchises. Yeah. They have a whole playbook of this is exactly what you do.
Is their food the best ever in the world?
No.
But their system is damn good.
Right.
And so that's why I tell my team is like, make sure our system, and if you see a flaw in the system, let's fix it. If you see something that's not working good, change it.
Right.
But let's always be consistent, because then it's easy to train someone. It's easy to run the company. It's easy you can delegate, because everyone knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't think that would be the case in an architecture firm where it's a very creative process. But if that underlying system is there, it actually allows you to be more creative, because you're not worried about all this other stuff that's gobbledygook in your mind,
Our systems are the only reason we've been able to do the amount of work that we've done.
Yeah.
And not a huge amount of time.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so glad you bring that up. I really, because we're creatives at heart. We're visionaries and creatives.
A lot of architects and designers are not systematic.
Most creative people are not at all. And I struggled with it for a long time, and it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago where, it was one thing when I was consulting with big brands, we're using the budget, so I had to always source all the talent.
Right.
And once I got really just tired and I wasn't doing enough for myself and systems and processes, I changed my approach. And when I thought about that, I turned my consultancy to an agency, and I realized, oh, wait a minute, I have to build my own systems and processes for how I can handle things.
Yep.
But let me really observe what just, creative entrepreneurs like you both, how do you make sure that you still feel very much a part of the process, that there's no personal touch lost in dealing with the clients, but the goal for me is, how do you reduce overwhelm, reduce wasted time, reduce inefficiencies, maximize profitability, maximize efficiency, maximize time, in energy.
Yep.
And I did it for myself first. So I led that way versus let me just form a company around this. So processes and systems are really the way you can also have a life and a business that's thriving, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's just it, is finding that balance.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that's a whole subject and topic in and of itself. It really helps when you love what you do.
Yeah.
To me, that's kind of the key.
Yeah.
So when we were talking earlier, we got into the whole thing about blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Yes.
And what are the EFT, or what do you call them?
NFTs.
NFTs.
Yes.
NFTs. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit, because I know we can go down that path forever too. But
I could go hours for that.
But just the little bit that you told us, I thought was so fascinating, especially in the case of Isabel and myself as architects and interior designers.
Right.
You don't think about cryptocurrency and NFTs with architects, but maybe, huh?
Absolutely. You absolutely can. Where do you want me to start on that? Because I know I'll do the best I guess I can on
Well,
simplifying.
I thought what you said about the fact that people can't take advantage of you.
Right.
They can't. The system is set up to incentivize good behavior.
That's a great place to start.
Something like that.
So blockchain technology, and for the listeners to make this really, really simplified, because it also helps me as well too, is that what we've been living in is Web 2.0. We had Web 1.0, and then it crashed with the bubble. Web 2.0 has been more, kind of this. The Instagrams and Facebooks and the Amazons and, all the stuff that we've been living through. And in this web world, some people have probably gotten their emails hacked, or they probably had
Their Instagram account
or
hacked.
their Instagram hacked, right? Exactly.
Yep.
Or malicious malware that's viruses on your computer.
It's getting worse.
Right. Exactly. So you have a lot of what they call bad actors, right? Like in society, you always have that kind of people who try to take advantage of the system, or businesses who've structured their business model, right, in the web world, or even banks, right? Like, we're going to charge you a monthly fee for online banking, $12 a month, or something like that. I mean, there's been all kinds of different aspects of Web 2.0. Well, Web 3.0 is built on blockchain, and all it is just a different standard of coding than Web 2.0's current coding for the internet. And Web 3.0 and blockchain are basically built by a network of nodes. And in order to create that, you have to have different coding languages strung together. If I'm saying this right, but like different information strung together by different programmers. It's done in a very transparent manner, and the only way that it can actually get completed is it has to be verified by the collective. So you can't fake it. You have to actually really write the code efficiently. I'm sure the blockchain world is probably like, you're killing this, man. But it's the best way I can kind of explain that. Why is this important? Is because nodes expand, and there'll never be, and it's highly transparent, and everything is constantly documented online.
Right.
It's all found. You can never fake it. Well, they accounted when they were making blockchain for bad actors, meaning that in order to manipulate the system, it would take you more time, energy, and money. So if you're trying to hack, if you're trying to take people for money, you're trying to do fraudulent off of this new way of programming. So let's say you want to try to rip off the public of so much money, it'll probably take you twice as much just to make that even happen. So you're actually always losing.
Yeah.
So blockchain is this really great organic kind of a holistic approach to collective integrity,
and the end user's in charge, and owns their
So that moved us into NFTs,
right.
And what an NFT is a non-fungible token. And for anybody listening, a fungible item is $1, right? It's got an amount. I exchange this for that. It's $1, whatever. That's fungible. A non-fungible token, if you could think about it, is like a collectible. And what that means is that, like, if anybody's familiar with collecting baseball cards or a Picasso or whatever it might be, well, you hope that you got that baseball card from a verified dealer, and it's verified, and there's a certificate of authenticity, right?
Yep.
Well, non-fungible tokens allow you to authenticate on the blockchain from the original creator, and nobody can ever counterfeit it, ever. So when you think about that, fraud goes down, and inauthenticity goes down. And,
well, you use the good analogy of the Louis Vuitton bag.
Right.
We go to Italy, and they got 15 vendors sitting there in the piazza selling Louis Vuitton bags. Well, we know they're all counterfeit.
Right. They very well could be, absolutely. And you wouldn't know it. I mean, it looks like a Picasso. Is it really a Picasso? I don't know. Well, blockchain, again, because of the way it's set up, it's highly encrypted, and it's all certificate of authenticity constantly, because whoever is the original creator of anything, any concept, any idea, any artwork, any architectural blueprint, any song, any digital art, any shoe design, whatever, any writing, anything, you mint it on the blockchain as an NFT, you are the original creator of it, no matter how much it gets shared.
Right. And the royalties can go forever.
So, good segue.
Yeah.
With an NFT, you can basically say, hey, you know what? I'm putting my work up on the blockchain as an NFT, and somebody can purchase this, token, the work, the art, whatever it might be, whether it's just a digital asset or maybe there's even a physical component that comes with it. And you can basically write into the technology of, do I want a royalty if they ever resell my, collectible? Do I, meaning like every time it gets sold out there in the universe, I take 10% that automatically gets tracked back to me through the blockchain? Or, do I want to give some of the rights to the ownership of this design to my community, or whoever ends up purchasing this? They have, part rights to my, like it's like the Beatles, like you own part of the rights to the Beatles or something like that.
Right.
Imagine collective
Or even
ownership.
like for charities, you could do something, say, hey, 10% of all this I'm going to give to a charity that I love.
Absolutely. And you could say you all actually ended up contributing, so now you all are part of ownership of this charity, and we all gave it to, or something like that, whatever it might be.
So there's endless spin-offs on this.
There's endless spin-offs, but at the core of it is that it allows the creator of any kind of concept to be in full control without, the middlemen, without the middlemen, middle women, like people getting in the middle of,
that really add no value.
Yeah, a lot of times, right? and so it allows also, because blockchain is also redefining banking. It's redefining supply chain management. It's redefining, because if you think about it,
changing everything.
Yeah, in supply chain, you worry about fraud, you worry about counterfeit, you worry about theft. Black market stuff, and then in banking, trying to transfer from one bank to another, sometimes they won't allow it, or across overseas, and all these extra fees. So blockchain is really decentralizing in a highly encrypted, yet transparent, non-manipulative environment, right? So when you think about that, it's decentralized. So everybody has their independence, and they're not,
which for like people in third world countries, I mean, where they have fraudulent banks,
right?
I mean, all of a sudden they can exchange value with a currency that they control.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
So now imagine if you are using different cryptocurrencies, and you're saying, hey, I've got this crypto, I send it from my country to your country. You can then turn it into whatever money you want. You can turn it into $1, you can turn it to a franc, you can turn it into a euro, whatever it might be, and I can see how that would maybe frighten some of the old system, but if you think about its possibilities, where we're heading, it's incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah. So like I say, you could go for hours on some of this stuff. So your podcast, that's what I love, is you do go deep into all these topics with your different guests, and you have such a wonderful array of guests all the time. I'm always fascinated by where you find these people. So your podcast is great.
Thank you.
It's definitely one of my go-tos for sure. So I had a question to kind of close this out. What's on your bucket list? We're coming out of the whole pandemic this year. What does Matt Gottesman want to do in the rest of 2021? What year are we? 21.
Right, 2025? Is that where we're at? How long has it been?
I've totally lost track. So,
I definitely want to add traveling back in there.
Okay, we have some good tours,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I do know. Are those taking place this year? Is that?
Well, we're still waiting to see if we can get to Italy. But
got you. Yeah, but
we would love to take you on one of our tours.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
I know. I'd love to go.
It's so fun.
I wanted to. I do want to go back to Italy.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to Spain. Spain was high on my list, as is Israel. I've never been to Israel.
That's
and I really want to go.
That's where I want to go with you.
Yeah,
we want to go to Israel with you.
Yeah, let's do it. I was hoping to go last year, and that I still haven't been. I really want to go.
Neither are we. We're ready.
And that's exciting to me for sure. So there's the travel aspect, and then I don't know, everything else I'm kind of doing at the current moment. Like I'm creating. I'm around good friends, good people. But the travel is definitely there. And
what do you love about travel?
Culture.
I love different perspectives of people.
Yes, the culture, the food, the different perspectives. I've noticed, especially a lot of European and South American cultures, they're so, at least in my experiences, they've been very present. They're so present, like they're living life. They're very much experiencing life. Oh yeah. And I learned from living a little bit in Europe about how to slow down at times. They would
make a good meal, have friends.
Yeah,
over,
like let's talk. Let's talk about ideas. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about possibilities. And they would sometimes laugh at me like, you Americans, because we can. And I get it. We can sometimes be so fast, so driven that we're missing the whole point of it all.
Yeah, we're so fast to get to the finish line.
Yeah, and the finish line is death. So it always cracks me up because I'm like,
let's slow this down a little bit.
Right, like where's it you're exactly trying to get to?
Where are you trying to get to?
Because there is no finish line except for when we pass on, because we're learning till the day we die. And So a lot of I learned from living in Europe at different times.
Yeah,
you know.
slow it down. Smell the roses. Smell the enchiladas.
Yeah. It smells pretty good right now.
It
I
does.
do smell the enchiladas.
It's smelling really good right now.
Right.
So, well, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, I think, like I said, we could go forever, and we will definitely have you back. We'd love to have you back, not only for enchiladas, but another podcast. Maybe we'll pick one topic. Now we got your overview a little bit. But this is a lot of fun, don't you think, Isabel?
I loved it.
Yeah.
You
And a lot
know,
of fun.
And
you're great, Matt.
Thank you.
are.
I love you
You're
both
awesome.
too.
I could talk to you forever.
We do.
I know.
Well, and
We're
I'll
gonna do
have
that
you.
now.
I know, and I'll have you guys on. We'll do round 2 with you, and I think you should come, and then
She should
on the
be on,
podcast,
for
right?
sure.
On my podcast, so
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
So how do we find you, Matt?
Everybody can reach out to me on Instagram at Matt Gottesman, Gottesman. You can email me, matt@mattgottesman.com. Systemsoverhustle.com is the agency if you're just needing even just to talk to somebody and that help. Hustle Sold Separately is the podcast.
Yeah, and I encourage you to go, not just listen to the one that comes out this week or next week. Go back and listen to some of the old ones because they are absolutely amazing.
There were some classics
Oh,
in there.
there's some
I was
good
going back
ones.
recently, and I'm like, man,
That's
I
the
need to
best
bring
part
some of these
about-
people back on.
That's what's great about podcasts is I love just sometimes just arbitrarily I'll just pick one. I'll say, let's just pick this.
Yeah.
And it's like it's really interesting to hear people's perspective like a year and a half ago before COVID.
Right.
And what they were saying and thinking.
Yeah.
And what people are saying and thinking now.
Yeah.
And like you and I said, there's more curveballs to come. We know that.
Yeah, always.
And so that's what the other thing I love about podcasts is just the evolution of thought that you are documenting.
Yes.
You're
Exactly.
capturing.
And and I always invite the guests to come back on. I tell each guest that comes on, I'm like, it's a journey-driven podcast
Right.
because life is always changing.
Right.
And so I'd be curious to know what your perspective is a year, later, or 2 years from now with the business or with life or how it's changing and evolving.
It's changed
it's
a
like
lot.
we'll never be out of content.
No.
Ever.
No. So great. Thank you
Well,
so
thank you
much.
for
This
having
is so
me.
much fun. And let's go enjoy those enchiladas.
Yes, please. That sounds so good.
Thanks, Matt and Isabel. Great job. I know we could have went on for more than an hour here, and we will get those two on the podcast again for sure. Make sure to check out Matt's podcast, Hustle Sold Separately. You will love it. Okay, our podcast keeps growing nicely. Thank you for the ratings and reviews. We have started our contest again for those that give us ratings and reviews. Here's how it works. Those that give us a rating and review between now and July 1st will get their name in a drawing for one of our Candelaria design tours. We will cover their round-trip airfare for the tour. I just returned from the Oregon Pinot Country, and we have an amazing tour coming together right there in the beautiful heartland of Oregon. So stay tuned for more details coming on that. So go right now and give us a rating and a review, along with a subscribe, and then email or direct message me that you did, and we will get your name in the hopper for this drawing. We do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes to our tours, and of course, with our Candelaria Design homes. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. See you next week.
Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria Design office expansion. You will have to check out our online video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with, dined with, and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.